During the first Daytona qualifier in the 1961 Speedweeks, Richard Petty was involved in a multi-car crash. As his car went up the track, he used the guardrail as a ramp to flip out of the track and miraculously escaped with little injury. As he was leaving the infield care center, he got word that his father, Lee, had suffered an eerily similar crash, although it was much worse. Despite these being horrific incidents, it just scratches the surface of the carnage of the 1961 Daytona Speedweeks. The Daytona 500, I think we can all agree, is the right way to start a NASCAR season. But up until 1982, Daytona was not the opening race. The 1961 Daytona 500 was actually the fifth race of the season, preceded by both qualifier races that counted as legitimate points races. Just 1 week before the Daytona 500, the third annual Cannonball Compact Race was held. This is one of the most forgotten events in NASCAR's history, which is kinda surprising due to the very interesting format of the race. The race was 30 total laps, the first 10 which would be on the road course, and the last 20 would be run on the oval. There was an even bigger twist though, as the field ran the road course backwards. It was pretty funny watching NASCAR stock cars take the green flag in the tri-oval at Daytona, backwards. So this was an interesting concept and produced a thrilling race. NASCAR Grand National winner Joe Weatherly would flip during the race, but he was uninjured. Weatherly would win the Race of Champions later that week on the oval, beating out Fireball Roberts by less than 2 feet. Fireball Roberts would make headlines again whenever his Smokey Unique entry was given a new 1961 Pontiac by the manufacturer to use during Speedweeks. Roberts suggested to Unique that he should field 7-time Grand National winner Marvin Panch in the 1960 Pontiac the team had brought to Daytona, and Smokey obliged. This will become a much bigger deal later. 2 days after the Cannonball Compact Race, Harold Haberling was practicing in his 1955 Chevrolet in preparation for the 1961 NASCAR Sportsman Modified 250-miler. Entering turn 3, Haberling's car spun sideways and ran up the track before rolling over several times and coming to a stop near the infield grass. The real cause of this crash is unknown, but thought to be a cut tire or mechanical issue. Haberling's helmet was ripped off during the crash and he was killed instantly. Haberling had just made the switch to NASCAR a couple of years prior and was 6th in the modified sportsman points before his tragic passing. 70 drivers showed up to run the 1961 Daytona 500, but only 60 could make the field. For some drivers and teams, just making the show was a huge milestone. But exactly who would make the field was determined in the qualifying races. After setting a new track record in qualifying, Fireball Roberts secured the pole for the Daytona 500 as well as the first qualifier. Despite having the pole locked down, Roberts was still racing to bag a cash prize of $5,000. Only 7 laps into the race, Dave Mader and Marshall Sargent got tangled up heading into turn 4, resulting in Mader crashing hard into the outside wall. Trying to avoid the spinning pair of cars, Wes Morgan ran over debris and cut a tire, sending him tumbling 7 times on the apron of the track. Morgan was carted off to an area hospital with a minor spinal injury, while Mader suffered a neck injury. Junior Johnson and Richard Petty were racing through turn 1 with just a couple of laps left in the first Twin 100 qualifier. Johnson hit a piece of debris that was undetected and it cut his tire. Johnson went up the track, collected Petty, and sent him up the pavement. Richard then used the guardrail to ramp outside of the track and into a sand pit 30 feet below. At the same time, Jim Hendrickson lost control as he approached the scene of the accident and crashed hard into the stationary Johnson vehicle. The race was called official immediately as there was another wreck at the same time on the other side of the track. So at this point, this race had just turned into complete chaos. Fans rushed to help Petty as safety crews were far away. Johnson escaped with only a cut chin, but Petty was in a terrifying situation. Shards of glass had gone into Richard's eye, so he was taken directly to the medical center to get them taken out. After the shards were removed, Richard headed out to pit road to see what was going on in the second qualifying race. As soon as Richard stepped out, he recalled this. "I looked up at some people who were on scaffolds and on the tops of trucks. They seemed to be in shock. I yelled at them and asked what had happened. They said, Lee Petty and Johnny Beauchamp just went out of the track in the fourth turn. I couldn't believe it. 2 Petty cars over the rail and out of Daytona on the same day. It seemed unreal." Johnny Beauchamp was on Lee Petty's rear bumper as they approached the lapped car of Jimmy Pardue. Petty tried to move high to get around Pardue, but Johnny ended up tagging Lee's bumper. The pair headed straight to the guardrail and broke through with ease. The pair tumbled down the embankment and came to rest. Lee Petty's car struck a spectator walking outside of the track, Mr. Kelly of Nashville, Tennessee. Although he suffered severe cuts on his hands, Kelly helped to pull Petty from the car, which had been set ablaze. Both drivers were injured seriously, and the wreck would effectively end both drivers' careers. There was a dark irony to this crash, as Lee and Johnny had battled it out just 2 years earlier in the first ever Daytona 500. Initially, Beauchamp was declared the winner, but after outcries from fans, Bill France decided to review the clips and photos over the next few days. Bill eventually reversed the call and declared Petty the winner. Only hours after the conclusion of the second qualifying race, there was speculation that the Dave Mader and Wes Morgan wreck may have led to Petty and Beauchamp flying out of the track. Fans, media members, and insiders alike felt the railing had been so weakened that it easily gave way later. This makes sense, considering so many other crashes had happened with 2 cars wrecking into the outside guardrail, and they did not pierce the barrier. This wasn't the only controversy. After the race, many drivers were vocal about the rookie drivers in the race. "I know it was veteran drivers in the worst crashes, but it was rookies that caused them," said Joe Weatherly. Rex White echoed his comments, saying the rookies weren't looking in their mirrors to see faster guys coming up behind them. If NASCAR doesn't have a meeting to educate some of these amateurs, there can't be much of a race on Sunday. There were some goofballs on the track today. Winner of the first duel, Fireball Roberts, also made a chilling confession. "I was scared to death out there." On Thursday alone, 5 drivers and 1 spectator suffered some form of injury. Johnny was in the hospital with head injuries, but was not in critical condition. Lee's situation was much more dire as he had sustained multiple life-threatening injuries. This included numerous fractures, internal injuries, and a punctured lung. After a few days in a coma and 4 months recovering in the Daytona hospital, Lee Petty was able to return to life as normal, but his full-time career was over. He would only make 6 more starts before officially calling it quits in 1964. Now, moving to the 1961 Daytona 500 itself. Due to the criticism and outrage of drivers, officials held a meeting on the morning of race day, firmly stating that rough driving would not be tolerated. NASCAR stuck to its words and black flagged 2 drivers during the race. With upwards of 700,000 fans in attendance, it was going to be a big show, and everyone was expecting carnage. Smokey Unick even instructed Marvin Panch not to run too close to Fireball Roberts, so that if Roberts was involved in a wreck, he wouldn't be taken out in the same accident. Fireball Roberts started on the pole and led majority of the race. There was a great 30-lap battle for the lead, where 5 different drivers led in 9 changes for the lead. Outside of this, Roberts dominated. By lap 187, he had a 2-lap lead on Marvin Panch, but then Roberts' engine failed. Panch led the last 13 laps and cruised to the biggest win of his career. Panch completed the 200 laps remarkably with only 1 change of tires and completed the race in 3 hours, 20 minutes, and 32 seconds. He had an average speed of 149 miles per hour, which amazingly was 2 miles per hour faster than the Indy 500 pole speed that same year. While Pontiac's factory heads had wanted a new 1961 model to win the race, Smokey Unick was so ecstatic with Panch's win that he upped his promised split of 40% to 50% of the race winnings. Tell you what, anybody good enough to win the race is worth 50% to me. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. That's it for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.